where the host invites family and friends to attend this grand affair. The host sends one of his slaves out to the invited guests, telling them that everything is ready and the party is about to start. However, guest after guest gives an excuse why they cannot come. One has just bought a piece of land and he must tend to it. Another has bought 5 oxen and he must try them out. And yet another has just been married and he cannot come. Now, I don't know about you, but they all seem like poor excuses for not coming to the party, because none of them convey a sense of urgency, where those tasks need to be taken care of right then and there. Couldn't they go to the party and then tend to those other matters later? Well, of course they could, but they chose not to. Attending the party was far less important than those other tasks for the invited guests. Now, after hearing the news that his guests are giving him excuses for why they can't attend, the host becomes angry and tells the slave to invite people off the streets, bring in the poor, the crippled, the blind, and the lame, he says. And the slave does just that. But there's still more room left. And the slave goes out again to basically beg others to come on in. Now, at the end, we are told that those who were originally invited to the party, but who have given poor excuses explaining why they could not attend, they will never taste a dinner that the host will provide. Their excuses will forever prevent them from feasting on a glorious meal and experiencing splendid hospitality. Now, it seems as if through this parable, Jesus is emphasizing the importance of one being a committed person, and that excuses are not a valid reason preventing one from whatever they have committed themselves to. It's as if Jesus is saying, finish what you started. This message and parable lends itself nicely to our scripture today. Our scripture for today is unique in that it's only located in the Gospel of Luke. None of the other Gospels touch upon the story. Our scripture is also one that leaves you scratching your head on the end of it, wondering what Jesus really means. What we have in our scripture is what I like to call harsh and angry Jesus. Now, he's probably not either, but the message Jesus portrays in the scripture is very serious and to the point. Jesus doesn't ever seem to mince words, and he especially does not in our scripture. In our scripture, Jesus has a large crowd that surrounds him. And it seems as if Jesus always has people around him. It can be a small group of 2 or 3, or a rather large group filled with a few hundred. But people love being around Jesus, whether they have gathered to ridicule him, whether they have gathered to sing his praises, whether they have gathered because they are truly curious about this man from Nazareth. Maybe Jesus was an introvert, maybe not. But Jesus doesn't seem to like having a crowd following him a lot of the time. Many times, it seems as if Jesus is even irritated by the crowds and the people in it. The followers of the crowds at times seems non-existent. It's most likely that this crowd that is gathered around him in our scripture has been with him for a while. Most likely more and more people have come into the crowd as the words and work of Jesus has gained more footing. And at this point in Jesus' life, Jesus is really knee-deep in his public ministry. He's really showing all his cards at this point, not hiding anything. Jesus is at this point of his life where the cross is ever so close to becoming a reality. And he needs to start thinking about the continuation of his message after. Now is the time in his life when he needs to make sure that those who are surrounding him are serious. and that they are following him for the right reasons. He needs to make sure that those in the crowd know what is exactly involved in becoming his disciple and remaining his disciples. Because whether God's message will spread or not will soon solely rely on them. So Jesus turns to the crowds and tells them, now if you guys want to continue to follow me, but you don't hate your family and even your own life, well, you just can't be my disciple. So you might as well leave now. Now, that's a little harsh, don't you think? But just like anything that comes out of Jesus' mouth, there's more to the words themselves. Now, is Jesus really saying that we need to hate our loved ones in order to follow him? Well, no. But we'll hash that out a bit later. And along the same lines, Jesus tells the crowds that those who are not willing to carry their cross cannot be one of his disciples. Now, to further this point, Jesus tells two many parables. The first concentrating on the importance of the builder sitting down to figure out if they have enough money and resources to build a tower and finish it. They have to weigh that, the cost and benefit, before even one brick is placed or 1 ounce of concrete is poured. Because if the builder does not start what he can finish, then he'll be deemed foolish. And what he did do will count for nothing. Then it tells a parable about a king who needs to weigh the cost, the option of whether going into war is a good idea, when he has 10,000 soldiers and his enemy has 20,000. Now, if he doesn't weigh the cost of going into battle before the first sword is even lifted, the massive, unneeded death to take place. And those around him will call him a foolish king. At the end of our scripture, Jesus tags on another sticker and telling those in the crowd that if they're not willing to sell all that they own, then that's yet another reason they cannot be a disciple of his. We are left at the end of our scripture scratching our heads, asking, now, did Jesus really just say this? And what does Jesus really mean by all this? Now, we see in the scripture that Jesus is trying to do everything in his power to deter those in the crowd from actually being one of his disciples. It would seem that Jesus doesn't want to have that many disciples because the requirements that Jesus lays out for being a disciple are really nearly impossible to take on. But really, Jesus isn't discouraging others from following him. Instead, he wants to ensure that those in the crowd who are saying yes to following him are doing so for the right reasons. Jesus wants to ensure that those who are following him are going to be committed to him and committed to continuing his message after his death. And especially when times get tough, because they will get tough. Jesus wants to ensure that those who are his disciples now will remain his disciples throughout all of their life. Jesus wants to ensure that those who want to become his disciples, that they weigh the cost versus the reward of being his disciples. And if they aren't ready to put all of their hearts, all their soul, and all their life into it, then they can leave now. Because it's better that way. If they're truly not committed to following through with his calling, they might as well leave now. Sure, Jesus wants more disciples, but it's